The sun blazed down on the cracked asphalt driveway as I hauled the last of our suitcases into the back of the silver Jeep Cherokee, sweat beading on my forehead despite the early hour. My hands trembled slightly, not from the heat, but from the restless excitement thrumming through me. This was supposed to be our big family getaway, a chance to escape the monotony of suburban life and reconnect after months of drifting apart. I'd spent weeks planning every detail. The route, the cabin rental, the meals, even a playlist for the 6-hour drive to the mountains. But as I slammed the tailgate shut, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. My husband of nearly 4 decades, Daniel, stood a few feet away, barking orders like he was commanding a platoon instead of a family vacation. "Ellen, double-check the cooler, make sure we've got enough water and sandwiches. And don't tell me you forgot the GPS again," he snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut through the humid air. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to point out that I'd been the one packing the cooler at dawn while he sipped his coffee and scrolled through his phone. The GPS? Tucked safely in my purse, along with a printed map as backup because I knew Daniel would never admit to needing directions. After 38 years, I'd learned to anticipate his demands, even if they came wrapped in that condescending tone he'd perfected over time. I forced a tight smile and nodded, brushing a strand of graying hair from my face. "It's all set, Dan. We're good to go." He grunted in response, barely looking up from adjusting the side mirror. Typical. He'd left every ounce of planning to me, as always, only to swoop in at the last minute and act like he was the mastermind behind it all. I swallowed the familiar bitterness rising in my throat and turned back to the house, where Daniel's mother, Margaret, emerged from the front door, her lips already pursed in that perpetual scowl she wore like a badge of honor. "Are we leaving sometime this century, or are you two still dawdling?" she called, her voice dripping with impatience. She adjusted the brim of her wide sun hat, shielding her sharp green eyes from the glare. At 82, Margaret still carried herself with the rigid posture of a woman who'd spent her life expecting the world to bend to her will, and it usually did. I plastered on another smile, though it felt more like a grimace. "Almost ready, Margaret. Just waiting on Tom and Lisa." As if on cue, the rumble of an engine announced the arrival of my son, Tom, and his wife, Lisa, pulling into the driveway in their dusty blue sedan. Tom climbed out first, his broad shoulders slumping slightly as he caught my eye. He gave me a small, knowing not our silent code for "I see it too." He'd always been perceptive, even as a kid, picking up on the tension between his father and me long before he could name it. Lisa followed, her dark curls bouncing as she waved cheerfully, oblivious to the undercurrents already swirling around us. "Hey, Mom. Sorry we're late, traffic was a nightmare," she said, her voice bright and unbothered. "No worries," I replied, grateful for her warmth. "Let's just get loaded up and hit the road." We piled into the Jeep, a tangle of bags and bodies, with Daniel at the wheel and me riding shotgun. Tom and Lisa squeezed into the middle row, while Margaret claimed the back seat like a queen settling onto her throne. As we pulled onto the highway, the hum of the engine filled the silence, but it couldn't drown out the whispers drifting from behind me. Margaret leaned forward, her voice low but not low enough. "Once we're at the cabin, we'll sit Ellen down and have that talk," she murmured to Daniel. "It's overdue." My stomach twisted, a cold knot forming as Daniel replied, his tone hushed but firm. "Yeah, Mom. She won't suspect a thing. It's for her own good." I stared straight ahead, pretending not to hear, my fingers tightening around the armrest. What were they plotting? This was supposed to be a vacation, not some ambush. The road stretched out before us, endless and uncertain, and I couldn't shake the growing dread that whatever they had in store would unravel everything I'd been holding together for years. The drive dragged on, the silence punctuated only by Margaret's occasional complaints. "This seat is too hard. Why didn't you pack my herbal tea?" and Daniel's gruff responses. I kept my eyes on the passing scenery, the blur of pine trees and rolling hills, trying to steady my racing thoughts. By the time we reached the cabin, a rustic, 2-story retreat nestled among towering evergreens, I was a bundle of nerves, my shoulders stiff from hours of tension. The place was charming, with its weathered wooden exterior and wide porch overlooking a shimmering lake, but its cozy promise did little to ease my unease. We unloaded the Jeep in a flurry of activity, Daniel barking more orders while Margaret hovered, critiquing everything from the gravel path to the musty smell of the air. Tom and Lisa pitched in quietly, their easy teamwork a stark contrast to the chaos Daniel and Margaret seemed to thrive on. As I carried the cooler inside, Daniel grabbed my arm, his grip firm but not rough. "Ellen, we need to talk," he said, his voice low and serious. I froze, my heart thudding against my ribs. "About what?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral despite the panic rising in my chest. He glanced around, wary of eavesdroppers. "Not here. Let's take a walk." I nodded, setting the cooler down and following him out the back door, past the porch and onto a narrow trail winding through the woods. The sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the path, and the air carried the sharp scent of pine and damp earth. We walked in silence for a few minutes, the crunch of leaves underfoot the only sound, until Daniel finally spoke. "Mom and I have been talking about her situation," he said, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Her health's getting worse, arthritis, memory lapses, the works. She can't live alone anymore." I nodded slowly, waiting for the punchline. "Okay. And?" He stopped walking, turning to face me, his jaw set in that stubborn way I'd come to dread. "We think she should move in with us. Permanently. You're home all day now that you're retired, and I'm still pulling 50-hour weeks. It makes sense for you to take care of her." The words hit me like a slap, sharp and stinging. I stared at him, disbelief warring with anger. "You want me to be her full-time caregiver? Without even asking me first?" My voice trembled, but I didn't care. After all the years I'd spent bending over backward for him, for her, this was what he thought of me, a servant, not a partner. Daniel's expression hardened, his blue eyes narrowing. "It's the practical choice, Ellen. Who else is going to do it? Tom's got his own life and I can't quit my job. You've got the time." "Time?" I echoed, my voice rising. "What about my time, Daniel? My plans? I was going to take that painting class, maybe travel a little, things I've put off for decades because I was too busy keeping this family together. Don't I get a say?" He rolled his eyes, a gesture so dismissive it made my blood boil. "Don't make this a soap opera. Families take care of each other. That's how it works." But his words rang hollow, a rehearsed line that carried no weight. In that moment I saw it clearly. Our marriage wasn't a partnership, it was a transaction, and I'd been the one paying the price all along. As we trudged back to the cabin, Margaret greeted us with a smug little smile, her Tory written all over her face. She knew she'd won, and Daniel had handed her the crown. That night I lay awake in the cabin's creaky guest bed, the unfamiliar mattress doing nothing to quiet the storm in my mind. Daniel snored beside me, oblivious as always, while I replayed the day's events over and over. How had it come to this? When had I stopped being his wife and become his maid, his mother's keeper? I thought of all the dreams I'd shelved, trips to Italy, mornings spent sketching by the river, a quiet retirement where I could finally breathe. All sacrificed to keep the peace, to play the role they'd cast me in. But as the first rays of dawn slipped through the curtains, something shifted inside me. A spark of defiance, small but fierce, ignited in my chest. I wasn't going to let them dictate my life anymore. It was time to fight back. The next morning, over a breakfast of burnt toast and lukewarm coffee Margaret's doing, naturally I watched them closely. Daniel shoveled food into his mouth, oblivious to the tension, while Margaret sipped her tea with that same self-satisfied smirk. Tom and Lisa exchanged quiet glances, sensing the shift in the air but unsure how to address it. "I was thinking we could hike to the ridge today," Daniel said between bites, his tone casual. "Great view I use up there." I forced a smile, playing along. "Sounds perfect." But my mind was elsewhere, already spinning a plan. As we set out into the woods, I hung back, letting Daniel and Margaret lead the way, their voices drifting back to me. Margaret's cut through the chatter, sharp and venomous. "Honestly, Daniel, I don't know how you've put up with her all these years. She's a liability, dead weight holding you back." My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms, but I stayed silent. Daniel's response was quieter, muffled by the wind, but I caught the tail end. "Soon she'll be out of the picture. Don't worry, Mom." The words landed like a punch, knocking the air from my lungs. Out of the picture? What did that mean? After everything I'd given up, this was how they saw Metadisposable, a problem to be solved. We reached a scenic overlook, a rocky outcrop with a breathtaking view of the valley below, and I lingered at the edge while the others admired the VYST. My heart pounded, adrenaline surging as an idea took shape. While their backs were turned, I slipped away, retracing our steps through the trees, my breath coming in short, determined bursts. I wasn't running away, not yet. I was gathering ammunition. Back at the cabin, I beelined for Daniel's leather briefcase, left carelessly on the Levi-ing room table. My hands shook as I snapped it open, rifling through the contents. Tax forms, a few pens, a crumpled receipt from a gas station. Then I found a thick envelope tucked beneath a stack of papers. I tore it open, my breath catching as I unfolded a letter written in a looping feminine script. "My dearest Daniel," it began. "These stolen moments with you are my lifeline. I count the days until we can be together openly." The words blurred as tears stung my eyes. An affair. After 38 years of loyalty, of pouring my soul into our life together, he'd been cheating on me. I kept digging, my anger fueling me, and uncovered more. Bank statements showing withdrawals I'd never authorized, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. Thousands of dollars siphoned away, hidden from me while I balanced our budget on a shoestring. The betrayal cut deeper with every page, a knife twisting in my gut. Laughter echoed from outside. Tom and Lisa must have returned early. I shoved the Denke into my purse, grabbed my suitcase from the bedroom, and scribbled a quick note. "I know everything. Don't follow me." I tucked it into the briefcase and slipped out the back door to the Jeep, my hands trembling as I turned the key. As I peeled out of the driveway, I caught a glimpse of Tom on the porch, his brow furrowed in confusion. Guilt gnawed at me. He deserved the truth, but I couldn't stop now. I drove until the cabin was a speck in the rearview mirror, the miles stretching out like a lifeline. By nightfall, I pulled into a dingy motel off the highway, the neon sign flickering vacancy in the dusk. The room smelled of stale smoke and mildew, but it was Minea's sanctuary from the chaos I'd left behind. Sitting on the sagging bed, I pulled out my phone and dialed Daniel's number, my pulse racing. It rang 4 times before he picked up, his voice rough with irritation. "Ellen, where the hell are you? Tom's freaking out." "Save it," I snapped, cutting through his bluster. "I know everything, the affair, the money you've been stealing. I've got proof, Daniel. It's over." Silence stretched across the line, thick and heavy, until he let out a low, mocking laugh. "Proof? You think anyone's going to believe you? You're just a paranoid old hag looking for attention." His words lit a fire in me, rage burning away the last scraps of doubt. "Call me what you want, but I'm done being your doormat. You and Margaret can rot together. Tell her that too." He started to argue, his voice rising, but I hung up, cutting him off mid-rant. For the first time in years, I felt a strange, exhilarating calm. I was free not just from him, but from the version of myself I'd let them create. Over the next few days, I holed up in that motel, plotting my next move. I called my oldest friend Sarah, a no-nonsense woman who'd been urging me to leave Daniel since the 90s. "About damn time," she said when I told her everything, her voice crackling with approval. "Stay with me until you figure things out. We'll get you a lawyer, someone who'll make Daniel wish he'd never crossed you." I smiled, grateful for her unwavering support, and started a list. Sarah, a lawyer, a new bank account in my name. And Tom, I'd have to tell him soon, before Daniel twisted the narrative. A week later, I pulled up to Tom and Lisa's modest house in the suburbs, my suitcase rattling in the trunk. Lisa answered the door, her smile fading as she took in my haggard appearance. "Ellen, oh my God, are you okay?" she asked, ushering me inside. Tom appeared behind her, his face a mix of relief and worry. "Mom, what's going on? Dad's been blowing up my phone, saying you've lost it." I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and launched into the story: the affair, the money, Margaret's scheming. I handed Tom the letters and bank statements, watching as his expression shifted from disbelief to fury. "Jesus, Mom," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "I had no idea." "I didn't either," I admitted, my voice breaking. "But I'm done. I'm leaving him, Tom. I can't live like that anymore." He pulled me into a hug, his arms strong and steady, and I felt the weight of his loyalty anchor me. I'm with you, he said fiercely. Whatever you need, I've got your back. With Tom and Lisa's support, I moved into a small apartment a few towns over, a sunny one-bedroom with a view of a quiet park. I filled it with things that felt like me. A second-hand easel for painting, a stack of novels I'd always meant to read, a vase of wildflowers I picked up at a farmer's market. Daniel didn't take my departure, quietly showed up at Tom's house one night, drunk and belligerent, demanding to know where I was. She's your mother, he roared. You owe me loyalty. Tom didn't flinch. You lost that PRIVY leg when you screwed her over, he shot back, slamming the door in Daniel's face. When Tom told me about it later, I felt a surge of pride and a pang of sadness for the family we'd once been. Months passed and I settled into my new life, the wounds of betrayal scabbing over with time. Daniel's calls dwindled, replaced by occasional venomous texts I ignored. Margaret left voicemails I deleted unheard. Then one crisp fall day, Tom called in a panic. Mom, Dad's at the house again. He's unhinged, yelling about you ruining his life. I raced over, my heart pounding, and found Daniel on their lawn, his face flushed with rage. Margaret stood nearby, her arms crossed, glaring at me like I was the VY Lane in her twisted story. You've turned my son against me, Daniel shouted as I approached, his voice slurring. You're a liar and a traitor. I stepped forward, meeting his gaze without fear. No, Daniel. You did this. You and your mother built this mess, and I'm done cleaning it up. We're through. Tom flanked me, his presence a silent shield, and Daniel faltered, his bravado crumbling. He muttered something incoherent and stormed off, Margaret trailing behind him, her defeat etched in every line of her face. That confrontation was a turning point. The calls stopped, the threats faded, and I was left with a fragile but growing peace. Then came Margaret's 85th birthday, an ostentatious affair she insisted the family attend, despite everything. Tom and Lisa urged me to skip it, but I saw an opportunity. If I was going to close this chapter, I needed to do it on my terms. The party was held at Margaret's sprawling estate, a monument to her ego with its manicured lawns and glittering chandeliers. She greeted me with a sneer, her voice dripping with venom. Look who decided to grace us with her presence. After all you've done to my son. I smiled coolly, refusing to take the bait. Wouldn't miss it, Margaret. The evening unfolded in a haze of small talk and forced smiles, Daniel and Margaret playing the gracious hosts while shooting me daggered looks. As dessert was served, Margaret's favorite lemon cake, I seized my moment. Standing, I tapped my glass, the chime cutting through the chatter. May I have your attention, please? I said, my voice steady despite the eyes boring into me. The room hushed and I launched in. I want to thank Margaret for bringing us together tonight. Family's important, isn't it? Though some of us have funny ways of showing it. I paused, letting the words sink in. For years I've swallowed the lies, the disrespect, the betrayal from my husband and his mother. The affairs, the stolen money, the schemes to control me. I'm done hiding it. Gasps rippled through the crowd as I laid out the truth, every ugly detail. Daniel's face turned ashen, Margaret's composure cracked, and the room erupted in whispers. How could you? Someone muttered. Disgraceful, another hissed. Margaret shrank into her chair, her reign toppling as the family turned on her. I walked out, Tom and Lisa at my side, the cool night air washing over me like a baptism. In the aftermath, I built a life that was mine alone. I painted, I volunteered, I laughed with Tom and Lisa over Sunday dinners. When their daughter Mia was born, I held her tiny hand and vowed she'd never know the pain I'd endured. Daniel and Margaret faded into irrelevance, their attempts to claw back control growing feeble with time. I'd won not through vengeance but by reclaiming my voice, my strength, my life. And as I watched Mia grow, surrounded by love and light, I knew that was the truest VY Tory of all.